Hi there. And I just finished recording episode number 298 with Ethan Weber. I think you're really going to enjoy this podcast. Ethan is a legend, really. You know, he's not only worked with the Stones for the last 30 years as their lighting director, working with Patrick Woodruff and team, of course, but he's also done U2, both 360 and the Sphere, and a lot of other stuff in between. But and a lot of other shows, and just a really super nice guy, very interesting guy, smart, and very likable. So I hope you enjoy this podcast as much as I enjoyed recording it. And as always, please like and subscribe and share as much as possible. You're helping us to grow this podcast to be something great. So thank you very much. Hello, and thanks for joining me today again on Geezers of Gear, episode number 298. Today's podcast is brought to you by Main Light, your go-to dry hire rental provider, bringing you the latest in lighting and stage equipment, from moving lights and control consoles to truss, LEDs, and rugged IP65 rated fixtures built for outdoor venues. Main Light have everything you need to make your production shine, whether it be a small theater venue, an outdoor stadium event, or a TV production set. Main Light is the partner you trust with the gear you want. In addition to rentals, Main Light offers brand new equipment sales from all your favorite brands, as well as used sales on equipment pulled directly from their rental inventory. All used gear is meticulously maintained and backed by a 60-day depot warranty, ensuring that you have confidence in every purchase. With 4 strategically located facilities in New Jersey, Wilmington, Delaware, Nashville, Tennessee, and Las Vegas, Nevada, you get the reach of a national rental company with the personalized service of a local provider. Visit mainlight.com today to explore their rental options and request a direct quote through their easy-to-use online ordering platform. Episode number 298 is also brought to you by Elation Lighting, a privately held corporation established in 1992 and headquartered in Los Angeles, California. All products are developed and engineered in the USA with sales and support offices located in the US, Mexico, and Europe, plus distribution via a worldwide dealer network. Please join me in watching the following Pulse series video.
Inspire your audience's imagination with Elation's Pulse Strobe Series, designed to bolster creativity and deliver breathtaking kinetic intensity. The Pulse Series empowers designers to create dynamic lighting experiences that captivate any audience. The Pulse Series synthesizes mesmerizing lighting experiences with power and precision, allowing designers to create rhythmic, heart-pounding lighting effects with effortless control. Elation's Pulse Series.
Hello. So, bit about AI. Have you been paying attention to these price and sort of technology wars that are happening right now? Basically, there's this company out of China called DeepSeek, who I think have been around for a couple of years, I think, building their technology, which has taken some time. But they just launched in a big way in I believe it's around mid-December last year, perhaps. And they launched at, as I recall, 1/27th of the price of competitive services, including ChatGPT, and but with a better model overall. and lighter weight too. So it used a lot less compute, which translated into the lower costs as well. Caught everyone by surprise, especially their competitors, I think, caught them with their pants down a little bit because it was that much cheaper and that much more powerful, and really just took the AI world, by storm. And so problematic a bit because it is a Chinese company, Chinese AI company, which means they basically earn their living on taking your data and building these large language models from your data. And so there's all kinds of issues there or concerns. And also there's some question on how they got the kit from NVIDIA because there are laws against NVIDIA or, blocks on them being able to sell their products into China. And so they were buying it, I think, through Singapore or something. So anyways, great model. I have used it. It's fast. It's excellent. It's very, it uses this thing called reasoning, which the cool thing about it is while you can ask it a really deep question and then watch it figuring that question out. It'll say the user's asking for this. So I need to go back and look for some of this, and I need to look at more of this. And it shows you their entire sort of strategy and their reasoning on coming up with that answer or those answers. So it really tells you the foundation and where those answers are coming from, which is really, really cool. And it's just a very good model. It works very well. It's fast. It's, again, very inexpensive compared to other models. So probably a week later, OpenAI, who own ChatGPT, launches O3 and O3 Mini, which are their latest versions. And O3 Mini claimed by OpenAI to be better than DeepSeek's R1 and at similar pricing. Unfortunately, from what I hear anyways, it's not similar pricing. It's still much higher, but a lot lower than where they were with their 4.0 model. So basically, OpenAI claimed to leapfrog over top of DeepSeek. It certainly dampened a lot of the noise because basically when DeepSeek launched, again, because they used a lot less of these NVIDIA boards or NVIDIA pieces, NVIDIA's stock tanked. It caused NVIDIA to lose, I can't remember, I own NVIDIA stock, but it was I don't remember, 20%, 15% in one day. And so, that's, again, the big reason why their price was so low. So anyways, a week after OpenAI launched their model, which, again, really rattled the industry and the market, and it really sort of tamed down all the DeepSeek noise, Elon launches his new Grok 3 model. And prior to Grok 3, I don't think very many people were paying attention to Grok. I was using it especially for writing. I just found it to be a little less boring, less dry than ChatGPT, a little more fun. And but people really weren't using it. Most people were using ChatGPT, and then a lot of people were using DeepSeek and ChatGPT. And all of a sudden, Grok 3 comes out, and it's better than DeepSeek and at a very, very comparable price to DeepSeek. And suddenly, Grok 3 is a player, and a major player. They're just taking over all kinds of things. And so a week after that, suddenly Anthropic Claude comes out and claims to jump over Grok 3, which I don't know, and I'm still using Grok 3, so I don't know if Claude is better. I haven't tried it yet. And so it's just been this battle. And I mean, we're talking about companies that are investing tens of billions of dollars in building these models, not small amounts of money, and they're just popping them out like popcorn right now. So it's a pretty wild time in the AI world right now. And speaking of Grok, I found a pretty cool story about a developer, one developer who created a video game using entirely Grok. Grok created the entire game in less than 3 hours. The server code was written entirely by Grok. And then the guy put this out to the market, and he made $20,000, almost $20,000 in about a week in revenue on this product that was entirely created by AI. So to me, what this shows is sort of this transformative potential in creative industries for AI, and ours being one of those industries. And so I know our industry hates AI. We love to talk about how it's going to cause the demise of everyone's jobs and all of these things. But I think if we can look at it from another direction, so this guy was a game developer, and he entirely used AI to make $20,000 in a week. So if you look at it where, let's say the show that you were going to program was going to take you, 4 weeks to program or 3 weeks to program or whatever, and now you could do that in a day or two because AI is doing much of the heavy lifting for you, and you're just pushing AI to do the things that you want it to do. It's an interesting thought. But also, I like the idea that it really does sort of lower the barrier that sort of enables this wave of innovation. And I think there's an opportunity that we are going to see products created by AI. We're going to see tech created by AI, excuse me, directly in our industry. And that's exciting to me. So more to come, but that's my take, my hot take for today on AI. I'm out of water. So today's guest, Ethan Weber, is a renowned lighting designer and director, best known for his decades-long work with the Stones and an extensive career spanning U2, John Mayer, Green Day, Pink, and many more. Pardon me. Starting at C Factory in 1984, Ethan joined the Stones in 1994 on the Voodoo Lounge Tour, evolving into a key creative force behind those legendary shows for, 30 years now. With a work-hard, ego-free approach, Ethan blends technical expertise with artistic vision, shaping some of the world's biggest tours. Passionate about giving back, he supports Doctors Without Borders and other charities. His motto, never half-ass anything. I like it. Please welcome Ethan Weber. Ethan Weber, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Marcel?
I'm doing well, thanks. Good to see you.
You too.
You've had a busy couple of years. Like, who knew that 80-year-old artists could keep you busy?
Yeah, I mean, we said, I think 90. I started with Keith in 92 or 93, 94. After that tour, we said, oh, this has got to be the last one. And 30 years later, we're still saying,
It's
well,
still
is
like,
this it or is this not it? Yeah,
that's wild, isn't it? It's wild.
yeah,
Like you and Cosmo seem to just be kind of hanging on to the to that,
yeah,
yeah, like, please stay healthy, please, Cosmo's got AC/DC again this year, which is incredible. I mean, I remember when I unwrapped the Back in Black album thinking, these guys will be cool for the next 5 or 10 years, right? Like, who knew?
yeah,
This was probably 1980 or something, but yeah, the Stones just blow my mind. We were just talking about it before we started recording, but Mick's, just his commitment overall to fitness, and I don't know about health, but probably health and
yeah,
all of
everything.
that. It's just mind blowing,
Yes,
and you were saying he doesn't even have any arthritis
no
at
arthritis
80.
seems
What
to,
is he now?
yeah.
82, right?
81 or 82, I'm not sure. I
Yeah.
think probably 81. Yeah, and
Yeah.
Keith as well. They're all
Yeah.
amazing. Just,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
It's
it's safe to
really,
say we'll never see anything like it again, probably.
I can't imagine. Although, I'm a huge hockey fan and football fan, and these people just keep getting older and older
Yeah, yeah,
because of just advancements in health and fitness and medicine and all of the things that,
yeah,
create longevity.
yeah,
So, so, I obviously love to start way early in one's career, especially someone like you who's done so many interesting and incredible things, and you've done it
thanks.
for a while. Um, and, there's usually sort of a common thread among some of the great designers and creatives in our industry. And it either starts as a musician or a DJ or just some fluky moment, but it generally wasn't, a more official or conventional type of training or schooling.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what was your excuse?
I mean, I think those of us who started kind of earlier on, it was more a case of just falling into it.
Yeah.
I was a production manager at my school, my college, following in the footsteps of Abby Rosen Holmes, and I
Oh,
was playing in a shitty little punk rock band, and we moved to New York after graduation, and called up. I needed a job. Called up Abby. She said, "Come in to C Factor," and that was it. And then kind of gave up
wow.
my musical career because it was a lot more fun to go on tour.
Yeah. Well, plus you were probably making a little bit more money too, which also
This was
equates to
C
fun.
Factor, which was probably $4 an hour, and I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
$200 a week.
Yeah, yeah, that's
For
funny. Yeah.
yeah,
So playing in a punk rock band might have been more lucrative than working
yeah,
for Bob.
yeah.
But you know what though? It still blows my mind how many amazing people came through C Factor.
C
Like
Factor.
Bob was a breeding ground for a lot of really great people in our industry.
Yeah, he taught us to do things hopefully the right way, and he was a merciless taskmaster.
Yeah.
We used to call him the Miracle Minute. It'd be 12 o'clock at night. You'd been working since 9, 10 a.m., and he'd come down and want to rearrange the shop and clean up the shop, and it was, I don't know.
It's wild.
He made us all a bit tougher, I think, because of
Yeah.
his.
Yeah, it wasn't easy,
Yeah,
but it
yeah,
probably played because I mean the longevity of so many of the people that came through there and the
yeah,
quality of the people that came through there. Obviously, sometimes that sort of militant training is helpful, I guess, to
yeah,
creating strong people. So
yeah.
yeah. So you how old were you when you started at C Factor?
I must have been. I think I was 24.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. So
it would have
you
been
weren't.
September 1984, I think. So I was kind of towards the tail end of
Oh,
the
cool.
glory days.
Yeah,
We,
yeah, but still significant. And so,
yeah,
how long did you stay there?
I was there 9 or 10 years,
Wow,
I think.
that's a run.
Yeah,
So I probably
it's
met
kind of
you.
like dog years. Like 9 or 10 years there is probably like 60 years anywhere else, I think.
It's kind of true. Yeah, it's kind of
Yeah.
true. Though, I think of all the moving light salespeople back in the 90s, I was probably one of the few who really, really liked Bob.
Yeah.
Bob and I had a special relationship where he'd call me on a Sunday night at 8 o'clock and I'd hang up
Mhm.
the phone at 10, and
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
wasn't anything about necessarily even buying or selling or pricing on lights or anything like that. It was either industry talks or just talks on life or
Okay.
things that were going wrong in his life or in his work or whatever or mine.
Yeah.
It was just a special friendship,
Yeah.
you know,
You're
different.
one of the rare few, I think. But
I know.
I used to. There was a period when I left where I'd go back to. Run into him somewhere, and he wouldn't even talk to me. Wouldn't shake my hand, anything.
Really?
And I was talking to Michael Ahern, who was best friends with him. Michael used to be the Stones
Yeah.
production manager for years, and Michael said, he said, you guys are like our kids. He said, when you leave the home, we're hurt by it, and eventually, eventually I'd go to New York, I'd call up Bob, and we'd always go out and have lunch, and we'd sit there for 4 hours, same thing, just chatting, and it was great to see
Yeah.
him,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
interesting
About
man.
12 Diet Cokes later. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. No,
yeah,
I definitely, he was one of the guys that I was sad when he left and I miss him still in some weird way, just because, I love the characters of our industry. I don't like,
yeah,
I don't necessarily love all the business people or even some of
yeah,
the private equity guys and all this stuff that are behind it now. But I love the characters, and there's still a few left, not as many as there used to be, at least on that
yeah,
side of things, on the vendor side. But
yeah. you're right. It is dwindling, but I mean that's the reason half of us not necessarily got in the business, but stayed in the business because everybody was a bunch of misfits who somehow figured out ways to make it work
Right.
and
Right.
be successful
Yeah.
and interesting people to hang out with and chat with.
Yeah. So when you started at C Factor, were you just like a shop guy wrapping cable and pushing road cases around, or did you immediately go out and start touring?
Well, back then, you'd start off in the shop. I think I was in the shop for maybe a month,
Yeah.
and then they ship you out, and that's it. Once you're out, you're
Huh.
out. There
Do you
wasn't. I
remember
think
your
there's.
first tour?
I went out and replaced somebody on Rush for a few weeks, and then I can't remember what from there. But I did a bunch of Rush tours, Neil Diamond tours, and
Yeah.
just
How was how was the indoctrination into touring working under Mr. Ungerleider?
it was. I love Howard.
Me
He
too.
had his own way, and yeah, hard to
Yeah.
describe, but it was great. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. No, he's to this day he's still a great friend and a really fun dude. Like just a great guy to
yeah,
just sit around and goof around with, and drink Bloody Marys with, or Caesars, depends if you're in Canada or the U.S.
right.
But
Yeah,
yeah, so that's a good way to start on Rush. And by then they
yeah,
were pretty big too.
yeah. I think
So
my
I
my
guess.
first load in the somebody had to go home. There was a death in the family or something. So my first load
Oh,
in, they said I was in the shop. They said go pack your bags and go to Madison Square Garden. So here I am, some
jeez.
little kid walking in right in the middle of a big Rush sold out Rush show at Madison Square Garden. It kind of opens your eyes a
Wow.
little bit.
No kidding. Yeah, your friends must have been a little bit jealous at the
Yeah,
time, you know?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, what are some of the other, like I said, so many great people went through C Factor, but I don't know the timing of it all. Like, to be perfectly honest, I forgot all about Abby being at
Yeah.
C Factor. I completely spaced on that. But who else was around when you were there that's still like out there today?
Uh, well, how many are? Well, Michael Weiss is one of the
Yeah.
probably more well-known ones. He's now production managing. So Happy was there. Jack Funk, who was doing Dashboard Confessional for years. Eddie Latico, Eddie Duda. Uh,
Ladico
my
wasn't there
mind
yet,
is
right? Was that after?
he was there. He was there towards the end of my stint there.
Right. And probably
Yeah.
same with Craig Caserta
Yeah, Craig was towards the end, if not just after.
and Looney.
Yeah. Looney was there briefly,
Yeah. So they
and
were
I
all
think it
sort of
was after
later.
me. Yeah,
Yeah, they
yeah,
were all later in the 80s and stuff.
yeah,
No, just a great breeding ground like them and maybe upstaging and obviously
yeah.
Verilight. A lot of people came through Verilight. Um, but so you connected with the Stones pretty early, right? Oh, 94, I think you said.
92, I started with Keith. So this all, the whole. Not only was Bob a great teacher, but back then he had pretty wide range of clients or tours. So I met Michael Ahern pretty early on, and we met Dave Russell and Al Santos and Patrick Woodruff, and you know,
Yeah.
and so Michael Ahern, we were fairly close, and I saw that a Keith Richards tour was coming up, and I knew Michael was probably involved, so I called him up and started off as a crew chief, and then they fired the LD, and I took over from that, and then that led into all the Stones things.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, so when was that what caused you to leave C Factor going with the Stones, or how did that all go down?
No, it was time.
It just
You know,
ended.
making $300 a week, working
Yeah.
100 hours,
Yeah.
and
the young man's job. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've never minded the hours. I love the hours, but at some point you've got to
It's
start
nice to
making
get
a
paid too.
little bit more
Right.
money living in New York City.
Get it. Yeah, I get it. I get it. So, you know, I hate to dwell on the Stones, but I'm always curious.
Yeah.
You when you started with the Stones, they were obviously still in arenas and stuff, right? Or had they already
No,
done
it
stadiums?
was stadiums. Yeah, and I started off as the crew chief. This um, Patrick, one of the consoles, he was using Dave Hill was the director using the the Verilight console, whatever it was called back
Virtuoso, yeah.
then. I think it was
Or
pre-virtual.
before the Virtuoso.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pre-virtual. And then there was he was using a Telescan desk and also the Hog One,
Okay.
and I was an AVO guy, so Patrick said, "Well, I want you on the tour." Because of my relationship with Keith and his manager, I think, and said, "What about doing the crew chiefing job?" I said, I'll do anything. I just want to do the Stones." So yes,
Right. Right.
and then yeah. So then
So then
then there was a progression of tours, and Dave kind of retired to stay home, and Mark Risk and Sparky was running the Icon console, and I was running an AVO out there, and then eventually,
yeah.
after a tour or two of that, we went down to one console, and Patrick had offered it to me. So,
Huh. So that's an interesting relationship and very long one too between you and Patrick.
yeah,
What's that dynamic like? As far as designer director, do you have a lot of input on the design? I would assume so.
um, generally, I mean, Patrick is more of the overall show designer now, production designer,
Right.
and Terry Cook from his office will work with Patrick, and they'll come up with the concept and the lights, and then they'll send a plot around. And I mean, because of my history with the band, I know there's certain things that I feel are really important, and just for my own well-being out there.
Yeah.
The one comment Mick has had over the last few years is he's having trouble, can't see the audience as well. So the mole lights and audience light, that's something I usually kind of
Yeah.
not
That's
necessarily
important to him.
fight for, but it's really, yeah. And that's the one note I'll get, because he's got, well, now he's got 4 of the new Roby spotlights in his eye, so
Yeah.
of course he's going to have
Yes.
trouble seeing. But so we'll talk about the design. Some of it to listen to me, some but
Yeah.
generally, between Terry and Patrick, they really get it right. And then once we get out to programming, I have a lot of leeway in that, but Terry and I will sit and program. He doesn't necessarily tell me what to do, but we talk about it.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
there's a lot of creative freedom in there, and then once we're out on tour, it's all me. And Patrick will come in, and he'll make some notes and all. But like I said, he's generally more involved in the overall and the video content now, because I think by now he trusts us to,
Yeah. I would guess so. 30 years kind
you would
of
hope so.
buys you
Yeah,
some, buys you some respect. That kind of dynamic, like when you've got, sort of hands-off designers, and then you've got programmer, director on the other side, like Peter Morse's team usually, or Patrick, or some of these designers who don't really get on the console anymore, or maybe never did in some of their cases. It's always an interesting dynamic, because I think it'd be very easy to sort of overstep, right? Like to step on somebody's ego or whatever you want to call it. And so I've always been curious to the different sort of versions of that dynamic, that relationship.
Yeah. I mean, Patrick's he's great. He's amazing.
Yeah.
As is Terry. You know, they let you. I don't know. Um, they definitely let you have free
Freedom.
reign over a lot of things. You know, they'll make
Yeah.
certain comments. My running joke with Terry is he'll suggest something. And I'll say, Terry, you know, I'm just going to change it when you're gone anyway, so we might as well do it my way. And it's kind of a
Yeah.
running joke. But, you
That's
know, it's
funny.
also nice because most of the stuff that I design, I like programming my own shows because to me, it's the whole process.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and I enjoy the programming part. But it's nice when I do my own stuff, it's all solitary. And it's nice to have somebody there to bounce ideas off of.
Right. Right.
You know, I
Do
always say
they,
like
does Pat,
sorry.
does Patrick ever come out to a show like, a little bit down the line on the tour and say, Ethan, what the hell did you do? This isn't what we talked about. Uh, Never
No,
anything
I
that
think
crazy.
there was one song we did years ago where I had this whatever my idea for the chorus and we ran it the first show and that one of his notes was like, you know, what was that? And I said, yeah, you know, this is why I did. He said, I get it, but you know, I'm not. Patrick is always he's polite and always very positive.
Yeah.
So it's never what the hell did you just do? It was yeah, I get
Yeah.
it, but you know, let's think of
He's
something else.
he's also quite humble. Like one time I was in the UK. This is probably, I don't know, 20 years ago, maybe more than 20 years ago. And I went with my now ex-wife who worked for a record company. And I was going with her because she had done a contest with Coldplay, and they were playing at their old college or whatever, Oxford, I think it was. And they were playing in the schoolyard basically. So they just set up fences and barricades and stuff around this schoolyard and sold a bunch of tickets. And I don't know, I think it was 40,000 people or something in this school field
Right.
for Coldplay. And she flew over with a bunch of contest winners. And so I was walking, I think, because I was kind of bored doing her record thing. So she gave me a laminate and I went out and talked with the production people and stuff at front of house. And I was walking back and I see Patrick sitting on a blanket with his family, snacking on carrots or something. And I said, Patrick. And he goes, oh, Marcel, how you doing, mate? And I said, I'm good. What are you doing here on a blanket? And he says, I'm just a punter. I'm just watching the show. I love Coldplay. And I said, well, you don't have credentials? And he said, no, we bought tickets. And I said, hang on a second. So I just went back and talked to somebody and got like 4 silk passes for him or something, and just said, come on, And so, but he was just so humble about it. Like, it's incredible.
Yeah, he's great. And he'll talk to anybody and, it's not talking about himself. He's generally interested in other people and what they have to say. And
right. Yeah, that's cool. He's definitely a legend. He is a legend, Mr. Woodruff. So other acts that are notable that you've worked with, I'm seeing kind of a list here. Obviously, U2, I'm aware of that one. But tell me a little bit about that, I guess. Were you involved in the Sphere as well?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I was
Very cool.
The Sphere was obviously Willie's genius. Oh,
Yeah.
And then Alex Murphy. So I'd done 360 with Willie and Alex, and then Alex was calling spots and running smoke, etc. And this tour I did the Sphere, I did all the key lighting.
Yeah.
With it.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Was that like one of the weirder gigs you've ever done?
It was interesting, because that was the first show in there. So while we're rehearsing, we had 2 months in there while they're still building the place and trying to do their movie. It was an amazing experience. I mean, all the way around. Working with Willie is always great. He's a very, very clever man, and some of the stuff he does is It's amazing.
Well, watching some of that video content coming together too
Yeah.
had to be fun, just
Yeah.
because it's just like as long as you've been doing this and as many incredible, huge, massive, wonderful shows you've done, there's just nothing like the Sphere. It's a one-off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we knew we went for a demo at the little mini Sphere in Burbank, and they
Right.
had some of the content, and we're sitting there, and they started running the content, and even though it was whatever the scale was, like, wow, this is going to be amazing, and it was. I
Yeah.
mean, after 40 shows and however many rehearsals, I never ever got tired
Really.
of anything about the show. Yeah,
Huh.
always look forward to it, and just really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I had Jake on, and we talked about it for a while. And one of my things, I'm now, granted, I didn't see it, but like when I saw video of the U2 shows, one of the problems I was having is because the video is so insane, I had a hard time finding Bono.
The band, yeah,
Yeah, like I couldn't find the band. I'm watching YouTube videos going, sounds amazing. The video's incredible, but where's the band? Like I can't find the band. And of course, that's nothing about the lighting at all. That's just what you get with the
Thanks.
Sphere.
Just
right?
sold me down the river. Yeah.
No, but that's what you get with the Sphere. That you can't
Yeah.
you can't compete with the video. Obviously, you just can't.
No.
Forget it. So
I mean, I always said you should see a show. Sorry, you should see the show twice. Once you watch the video, and then the second time you look at the
true.
band.
Yeah.
The best seats in the house, I think, are like the 300 level back behind us, because you get the whole view. I went and saw the Eagles there.
Okay.
I think it was spin touring LDI weekend,
Yeah.
and we were sitting down lower, and it was interesting because it was a different perspective from where I watched the show for however many months. Because lower, the band was more of a presence because they're right in front of me, obviously.
Right.
So maybe
Right.
the idea is you see it twice, once from midway up and once from down close.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Well, and I think it's also like, again, the Eagles is another one that I just, I love the Eagles, but I'd rather see them in a theater or something than in the Sphere. Whereas like Fish or that Grateful Dead thing, you'd rather see in the Sphere, because they're very visual. Pink Floyd would be amazing in the Sphere,
Amazing
obviously.
there. Yeah.
Incredible. Hopefully that happens. Like hopefully somebody's throwing bazillions of dollars around to get Pink Floyd. Yeah. That'd be fun.
But I mean, one of the brilliant things Willie did was there was the section in the middle where they would change. That was one part of the set list that would change from night to night, and it turned into, here's the band. It's about the band and about the stage, which had the algorithm that it picked its own color. So there was really minimal stuff on the screen then. So at least there was that moment of in the middle where, all right, here's the band. Stop looking at the screen.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously U2 and Stones, being massive, where you were director, programmer. But what about some of the design tours that you've done, like notable stuff?
Well, I did a few tours with designing Green Day, some My Chemical Romance stuff. I spent 8 years or so with Lou Reed. I did some Bob Dylan.
Nice.
I had a decent little design thing going, and then, I always say, well, I'm not sure if the Stones was the best thing that happened to me or the worst thing, because I always make myself available for it. But I don't, I wouldn't change a thing. It's been amazing, and
of course,
and I'm not one who really dwells on titles. Like I don't care if, I know my part in it. I know that whatever it is, a large part of the visuals, hopefully I've had something to do with it.
Huge. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Well, I mean, who wouldn't want to be sitting at the desk every night when, stadium lights go down and
it's amazing.
Start Me Up or whatever it is that they start with, it's like, whoa.
Yeah,
It's going to be
yeah,
cool every single time.
yeah. I always say, like my kids are 12 and 14, and they've seen a bunch of Stone shows, and they come out, I take them out front right before the show. They always sit on my riser, or unless they're running around, God knows where during the show.
Yeah.
But I always tell them, I'm like, this is one of the best things about my job. When I walk out, and I always walk out from stage right unless it's impossible, to walk out from backstage into a stadium full of people who are just, you know,
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
up here waiting for the Rolling Stones or
Yeah, they've been
U2 or somebody to
fans
come
for
out.
40 or 50 years, these people,
Yeah,
most
it's the
of them
most
anyways.
exciting thing. Yep. And
Yeah.
you
Yeah. It's,
never take it for granted. Mick never puts in less than 100%. I feel the
yeah.
same way.
Yeah. I love that. Like I
Yeah,
obviously you can go out and see some bands who just kind of sit there and play the songs
yeah,
or sometimes they actually even sit like they've got a chair on stage and stuff.
yeah.
Like, you know, okay, they still sound great, but I can sit at home and listen
And
to
say, yeah,
listen to the album or whatever. I don't need to, go pay $75 for parking to watch people play the album. But
yeah, yeah,
to see Mick and Steven Tyler, who obviously struggles with some things, but he's still a rock star. When he does go out and gig, he doesn't mail it in. He puts
yeah,
on a rock show. I love those
yeah,
people. Like all of those guys who are in their 70s and 80s now who are like just still killing it out there. I love it.
yeah,
It's so
yeah.
good. So
It's amazing.
we were talking before we started, like some of the massive things that both you and I think we're similar age,
Mm.
have seen in our industry, being that we're a little older than some
Yeah,
of the people in it today. Um, I got to be there when Moving Lights started, and
yeah,
I love that. Like I wasn't out doing shows; I was selling stuff when Moving Lights started,
yeah,
and so I jumped on that bandwagon. I said, "Hey, these things might stick around. I'm going to learn all about them and go out and become an
yeah,
account executive selling moving lights." And but so many people now just take it all for granted. Like
yeah,
it's like, hey, we all have these massive digital consoles with a bazillion universes on them, and all these pre-programmed effects and all this stuff. Like, and we all have 1,000 moving lights on every show. Like what you obviously did shows when there weren't moving lights on them, I'm guessing.
yeah, yeah. Parkins spent,
Yeah.
you know. And I actually recently I did a short Iggy Pop run, and there was a
Oh,
very limited budget for lighting. And this was one of the best things I've ever done, by the way, Iggy Pop, just to be able to watch him for however many
guy's
shows we
wild.
did. Yeah. So
I mean,
there
I'd
was,
prefer he left his shirt on at this point in his life,
I,
but other than
that's
that, like as
Iggy.
a
Yeah.
performer, wow, the guy
Yeah.
just blows my mind.
Yeah. You get to the end of the show and like, God, that was only, 80 minutes. And then you look at the set list, you're like, that was 20 songs in 80 minutes. Stones
Wow.
do 19, 20 songs over 2.5 hours. But
Yeah.
so we had a fairly limited lighting budget. I had enough to bring out a few floor lights, and then we used house lights everywhere. And there was somewhere where they didn't have any lights. So we brought a system in. I designed a nice, moving light rig, and money came, the quote came in. It was a bit more than they wanted to spend. And I talked to the manager. I'm like, hey, do you mind if I'd like to just do a park hand show, no color bars, no color show. He's like, yeah. So
Old school.
yeah, so PRG scraped the bowels of their warehouse. I was in there something while they were prepping it, and I was telling the guys, hey, can you make sure that all the bottles are up and down stage? And like looked at me like, what are you talking about?
That's
Anyway,
hilarious.
so I did a no color show. I did have one circuit of red for Gimme Danger, and afterwards the manager came up. He just said, with a smile on his face, he said, I just want to thank you. I said, it has been so long since I've seen a park hand show, and it was amazing, to see those
So,
lights again.
were you running park hands on an MA3 console though, or did
MA
you go full
MA2.
on control? Oh,
I'm
okay.
still MA2. Yeah, but I should have.
That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be funny though if you rented an Expression 2 or something and brought that in to run park hands on, or an old
Yeah.
Avo, whatever, you know.
It, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would have been fitting.
Yeah, I mean,
But
again, same with sound. Like, by the way, I have a few guys. Like, I kind of grew up with. Do you know Jim Yakubuski, front of house guy?
no.
He's done loads of different
Right.
stuff. He now works for Solo Tech, but he's been a front of house
Okay.
guy for years and years and years. But I come from Calgary, Canada, and he was a club sound guy, working for club bands in Canada, rock bands. And like he could take these old sound systems with JBL W bins and 4560s and these like stacked, really junky sound systems and just make them sound incredible. And
Yeah.
then he could go on to these new Martin Audio, they called them the phase plug systems. And he could go on to those and make them sound incredible. And now I've heard him with line arrays, making them sound incredible. You know, a great engineer or a great person at the console or at the controls should be able to make anything
Yeah.
sound good or look good, right? And
Yeah.
the ability to make it look great. Like, one example also was when Brickman showed up with Neil Young at I think it was Coachella with 16 follow spots, and that's it. That was the
Yeah.
lighting rig.
Yeah.
And they went, where's your lights? I mean, this is it. This is our lights. 16
Yeah.
follow spots.
Yeah.
I
Brilliant.
love that stuff. I love that stuff. One of the I mean, so I hate to get into conversations where it sounds like, these kids these days, because there's so many talented young up and coming people in our industry who are just doing incredible things. But the toolbox is so much more full today than it was, back in the day, like we tend to say way too often.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I always say back then it was a lot harder to design your rig. That's what really took the time, because you had to get placements right. You had to get fixtures, whether they're Lecos or Pars or Fresnels, get all that in the right place, pick your colors beforehand. So that was time consuming. Now it's, there's never enough time on the other end to program it, because all these lights can do so much. But, you pick your truss shape and you load it with whatever your favorite movers are.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. I was over at visiting with John Featherstone and Haley Featherstone and Chris Herman while they were programming some Hans Zimmer stuff, and we were talking about some lights, and John showed me a video of some light he's about to use, and the one comment was from both of us, I think, was, "What a beautiful looking light! It looks just like a par can." But obviously you can change color, but there's still something about that quality of the beam from a par can.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're totally right. Well, and I like that we're going back to some of that. Like it seems like more manufacturers now, lighting manufacturers, are starting to say, okay, we've done things that are incredibly bright and throw for 12 miles and do all these different things, but let's go back to basics a little bit. And like one of my favorite is the little Martin thing, the Mac 1.
I just used that for the first time. Yeah. Yeah, it's a nice,
that thing is
great little
so
light.
Cool. It's great, and it's cheap. It costs nothing practically, and it just does a few things really, really well, and fits in small spaces, and I like that. Like I like sort of scaling it back again, and I don't know, like having every light with the ability to do everything, to me, just has become a little bit vanilla.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is my light that does beam, wash, profile effects, or whatever, right? And how about having like some layers and some different fixtures and stuff like that? I don't know. Again, I think like an old guy probably.
Although at the same time, for years we had to alternate. Okay, here's my wash light next to my profile, next to my wash.
Yeah.
And I mean, my favorite light of the last 20 years was probably the Martin Air Effects, because
Yeah.
you could do gobos and it had a great quality of the light. And all of a sudden, instead of having to alternate, all of a sudden I had, 100 lights that if I wanted a big, strong looking wash or a big, strong gobo look, you could do it with every
True.
single light, not every
Right.
other one. So,
Yeah.
but
That makes
but at the
sense.
same time, now the lights that can, have a built-in strobe and could do this and this and this. Yeah, I agree. I get it, but it can be a little bit much.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I just think that I think, we're seeing some changes to go back the other direction a little
Yeah,
bit, where you do have some sort of specialized fixtures that just do something really, really well, and they don't try to be everything to everyone. And
yeah,
they're maybe priced a little better. We're looking at weight again as being, a thing. Like, let's get the weight back down on these things. Maybe a few less channels on some of them. Like, not everything has to
that
be controllable
yeah.
by 200 channels or whatever.
That's the
So
insane thing. I mean, there's somebody was showing me a light the other day that's 300 some odd channels. I'm like, everything I run, I just want to run it in basic mode. I want light to come out of it. I want it to be able to turn it red. If I want to
yeah,
flash it around a little bit, like, who has time? But then again, because I program my own shows and I'm a little slower. These whiz kids who
yeah,
who can deal with all that stuff. I'm like, I don't have time to look at every single
yeah.
little. And
Yeah, no,
yeah,
I agree with you. I get
yeah,
it. Well, the other thing is power. Like,
yeah,
so I remember not that long ago, less than 10 years ago probably, where we were saying, "Oh my God, it's great because we've reduced power so much on
yeah,
these rigs. We've cut power because of LEDs by 75%." Well, no, we haven't, because now we're putting like 2,000-watt LEDs in
yeah,
fixtures and
yeah,
1,000-watt LEDs and stuff. For some reason, we're trying to, out glare the video screens now,
yeah,
and everything's got to be 40,000 lumens and stuff. And so we've given up on the power benefit that we had. We've given up on the weight benefit that we had. The size, they've gotten bigger again. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I
yeah,
guess engineers who are creating new lighting fixtures know what they're doing, I assume, and
yeah,
because they are coming out with some really cool innovation. But I'm just not sure I always agree with the strategy. But what do
yeah.
I know?
Well, and I mean, as far as the power, one thing I used to say was, well, yeah, a Parcan might eat up more than power than this, but a Parcan's on for focus, for programming, and for the show. The moving lights, all the discharge lights, you'd
Yeah, they're
strike
on
them in the
from
morning,
morning
and,
till night.
and they were so, nobody wanted to douse them, because
Yeah,
who knew if they were going to strike again. So now you've got lights that are on for 14 hours a day instead of whatever. Now,
yeah,
at least with the LEDs and stuff, when they're
yeah.
not
They're
on, they're
off.
not drawing much power. The only problem is, and this is a problem I find with some of the young kids, or not necessarily young kids, but a lot of people. I saw a show. I won't say what it was. It was a stadium show. It looked great, but every single song had everything going. I'm like, you know, I get it. You
Yeah,
got all these toys, but you need this to make this work and this to make this work. Like, give the audience a rest, because it's
yeah,
exhausting.
yeah, yeah.
But
Another great Brickman quote. Brickman said to me, you know what I hate is those EDM shows. And I said, what? And he says, well, the last thing I want if I'm standing there stoned out of my fucking brains on Molly is a bunch of lights flashing in my face constantly, with a bazillion lumens and stuff. And I said, yeah, you kind of got a point there, buddy.
yeah,
So,
and
yes,
it's not to say they don't look amazing, but God, give
they
us
do.
give us a rest for a minute.
Yeah, yeah.
And
It is
and be mindful.
exhausting.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the great things I learned from Mick was, and he knows his audiences more than any. I've actually learned a fair amount of lighting from those guys. I had a
Wow.
conversation with Keith, and I'd read an article about some of his views on guitar playing, and he said, you can play as much, you can, whatever. It's as meaningful not to play as it is to play. I'm like, yeah, you can do as much by leaving it dark as you can by having it big. You need all the peaks and valleys.
Yeah.
And
No, I
yeah,
completely get what he's saying. Like, I think what he's saying is, in this much time, I could put, 1,000 notes, or I could put
yeah,
8 really well placed, strategically
yeah,
played, incredible notes that give people, a reaction.
yeah,
And he's right. He's right. Like, one of my
yeah,
favorite guitar solos is David Gilmour, Comfortably Numb, which is very few notes. There's not a lot of
yeah,
notes in that solo, but it's just so perfect and so beautiful for that piece of music.
yeah.
Um, so
And
yet I
and
love
that
virtuoso
translates to
guitar playing.
lighting. Yeah,
Correct.
but that
Yeah,
translates
correct.
to lighting too. And I
I
think a
agree.
lot of people, because there's this, massive amount of things you could do with all these lights, they
Yeah.
feel like, I've been doing some stuff with Jackson Brown lately, and it's hard. You want to, as a lighting guy, you want to make these hits and have some movement, and then,
Oohs and
but
ahs.
I,
Yeah.
I don't, because I look at his audience, I'm like, they don't want to see that. They want to watch Jackson. They want to make sure he's lit. They can see him, and they want a nice, pretty scene behind him. And
Yeah.
it's, as a lighting person, it's really hard. But I think, are we doing this for us? Or are we doing this for the audience?
That's a perfect point.
Yeah,
That's exactly what I would say about that is
yeah,
this about my ego, or is this about making the
yeah,
artist look as good as I possibly can, and
yeah,
allowing people to really enjoy the music more?
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I'm with you on that. And, there are, and I don't really want to mention names, but there are some very classic artists, let's call them Beatlesque types of artists, who
yeah,
I've seen some shows where it was just like, strobing in white, everything on the stage and stuff like that. And like, I'm just like, that doesn't work for me. Like,
yeah,
I'm not a lighting designer. You're an extremely talented guy and all this, but when I'm listening to a classic song, um, to me that's much more subtlety. Like, that's,
yeah,
uh, you know, so I don't know. Like, I think there's a time and a place.
yeah,
And if the time and the place is every bar of music the whole night, you're gonna wear out your audience.
yeah, yeah,
That's what I
yeah.
think, anyways.
Yeah,
So
and same thing about blinding the audience. I try to. Obviously, we can't avoid it all
yeah,
the time, but I try to make a conscious effort not to piss off the audience. Because, I mean, I've been in the audience where there's a light in my eyes, for half the show, and it's just annoying.
yeah,
Although I
it
will
is.
say, my possibly the one of my favorite cues ever that I've done. I did a few tours with Angels and Airwaves, the guitar player from Blink's solo band, and it
Okay.
was just a little club rig, and I had these the early days of the LED pars, and I had these pars in red on these towers, and I would start off at like 10% strobing, and over the course of, I can't remember, 3 minutes, they were gradually going up to full, and like the pure torture in the front row. But it was that kind of audience, and
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
and they could have shut, and the band really, I think, kind of appreciated it.
Well, I
But
think if you
that
would
was
have
only
done that all
one
night,
small moment. Yeah,
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 if you did that all night, they'd get annoyed after a while because they
yeah.
can't see the band, they can't see their girlfriend, they can't see anything.
No,
It's
no.
like, come on, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
And
generally,
I
if I'm going to see a performer, I kind of want to see the performer,
see
and
the performer.
you know,
Yeah,
I've spent most of my career, looking up at the lights and stuff, but I don't know now. Like, I guess the bigger problem I have is um just because automated lights and LED screens now are so accessible, like everyone
yeah,
has them in their inventory. It's so easy to design so much of it into every show.
yeah,
And it really does, like, when people put, there's two things that I used to be able to really see. And so when people would put a lighting shot on social media or something, I would be able to tell what act it was. Can't
hmm,
anymore. I can't even tell you what genre of music it is anymore because they all look the same. Like Andrea Bocelli is going to look the same, and I'm just saying that name. I haven't seen the show, so I don't even know who designs it. But a classical show might look the exact same as a heavy metal show, as a Metallica show or something.
Yeah.
And then the other one is I can't tell a light fixture from another anymore either. Like you used to be able to look up and go, oh, that's a VL5, that's a Cyber Light, that's whatever. Not anymore. They all basically look the same. So it's different. It's definitely different.
Yeah.
So you were saying
so much of it is driven. Oh, sorry. But
go on.
I mean, a lot of it is driven by the bands. The bands think that they need the video and.
Yeah. I think it's Wiseman who told me that. Like he says, Beyonce will go out and see J-Lo or something, and or Taylor Swift, and she'll say, I want a rig bigger than Taylor Swift. She's got one of those. I want two of those, that kind of thing. Like there is some competition with the artists, which, drives up the budget and everything else, which is fine, I guess. But what do I know? So you said you're still MA2. Is that for a reason, or is that just because you just haven't moved on to the 3 yet?
Because the shows I've been doing, like, the Stones has been a progression since, for years. So that was always on the 2. And I've been doing John Mayer for a while, and that started off programming for a 2. And I actually had an epiphany. I hate using words like that, sorry, but at LDI, because I was really I got pretty horribly burned by the Hog 3, so I'm a little gun shy to switch to any console before it's really ready. And the idea of having to learn a new console was just at my. Obviously I'm not ready to retire yet because I still love what I do, but I'm definitely on the downswing instead of the upswing.
Yeah, right.
And I thought, how do I really have to learn a new console? But, I spent some time talking to Eric Martwinski, and, I was thinking about it. We were talking about the 3, and I was thinking about it. I'm like, well, why not look at it as something fun to do? Look at it as a challenge. It's like learning a new language or something. And so, So I'm home for, I don't know, a month or so. So I'm going to start the process of going to the 3.
Oh, cool.
But so 2 reasons. The shows I've been doing, we're on 2, and if it's working, even if it's a new iteration, you're still building off the other one.
Yeah. And a lot of people are doing it in 2 steps too. They go to the 3 hardware, but the 2 software at first. Right. They'll run it in 2 mode. And then they'll eventually sort of move on to 3 mode. And pretty much now, I'm sure you have those conversations way more than I do, but everyone I talk to now is like, the 3 now is making my life better. For a while, I hated it. I fought it. I didn't want to do it. When I did it, I went backwards again. But now it's actually making my life better. It really works for me now. So that's a good thing. Just in time for the 4 to come out.
Right. And I mean, when I think about the number of consoles we've all had to learn over the course of our life, and I was AVO for years and years, but now it can do everything. I think it's an amazing console, and I love all the guys at AVO, but it's just I had to eventually switch over because they kind of
Have you ever looked at the D9? I don't know much about it, but I know people who say it's incredible and all that stuff. But
it is, and I love Brad White.
Yeah,
the console is great, and it's easy. The biggest problem is availability. Like if you're doing a world tour, I know that if I run into a problem in Thailand or something, I know I can get a console. Locally, and. So that's kind of big.
I fought years on that problem when I worked for Martin because people would say, but I can get high end this or that, or I can get Verilight this or that in the market. I can't get Martin fixtures if I need them. So, you know, you need to build up a sort of a distribution network, a rental network before you come to me asking me to spec them on my shows.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. You know, I just kind of worked with the designers and worked with the lighting companies and said, hey, we need to get this built up because Ethan wants to use it on the Stones or whatever, you know. And and it worked, you know, over time. Martin's now pretty big. But yeah, I mean, the whole console thing is interesting because, you know, if you think about it, like, I'm sure you know Bob Gordon, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Bob.
So, yeah, me too. He's, I just did this thing at LDI called Dining with Dinosaurs, and Bob was one of the dinosaurs. It was fun. But, you know, Bob being Hog 1, Hog 2, and unfortunately, I think he was still there for Hog 3, or no, that was a high-end product probably. But, you know, top of the world with Hog 2, and they pulled the line from him because high-end bought it, and suddenly he's got no console and just pulls out the MA out of nowhere, out of the sky, you know, and just hits gold again. I mean, just unbelievable.
Yeah, I went to LDI and I needed to switch to a new console, and that's when the Grandma 1 was around. And I went and I got a, you know, whatever, the short spiel from whoever was doing it, and he had a long pinky nail, and he's hitting the screen like this. I'm like, I'm not using that console. Like, that is not a rock and roll board if you got to use your little fingernail to do it. Unfortunately, so I lost a few years on the Grandma 1, but eventually, after the Hog 3, I knew I needed a new console, and Nook was trying to convince me to use the Maxis, but every show I'd go to, everybody was on the Grandma 1. I'm like, you know.
Yeah, that sounds like you made the right choice.
Luckily, yeah.
Although it's interesting what happened with the Maxis, you know, that like Elation bought it and turned it into this Obsidian console range, which is like just a jump below all the MA stuff for the smaller shows and installations and that stuff. And they've done really, really well. It's nice stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
and that's the thing. There's so many different markets, you know, as much as you don't see a lot of ABOs out on the bigger tours, there's still, you know, there's a huge market for them, and they're great consoles and nice people. Yeah.
Well, and I think now they've got their manufacturing shit together a little better too, you know, as far as at least expanding sort of mass manufacturing or whatever now that they're part of Roby. So, you know, there's a place for them. Absolutely. You know, it's just, I don't know, like when MA has the market share that they have, I don't know that attacking the top end of the market is the best strategy right now, you know, because they're going to be hard to knock off that perch that they're on up there, you know?
Yeah.
So
and they're great people. You know, that was the thing when the 3 came out and all the horror stories you heard about it. But you know all the people who are responsible for it, and because you like them so much, you're like, well, all right, we're going to give it the benefit of doubt. I know it's going to come around. Let's just give it some time.
Yeah, it's true. So, do you ever bring young people out on any of your crews? Like, are the shops putting, you know, younger crews out and where you get to kind of mentor them a little bit?
Yeah, it's and I'm happy to, you know, most of the time they don't, because I still do load-ins and load-outs because I enjoy the whole process. And you know, you might make some suggestions to somebody who's kind of new, and they look at you like, what do you know? And you're like, okay, never mind. But you know, anybody who wants to learn, you know, we all, like, I always like to say that I'm immodest about my modesty. Like, I like to fly under the radar. I'm kind of quiet and shy most of the time, but But, you know, you think about the fact, well, you know, you want to have some kind of legacy after 40 years or whatever you want. Hopefully in the next 5 years, somebody will still remember your name, whatever. But I always say, you know, I want my legacy to be that I taught some people stuff and that people liked working with me. And, you know, he was a nice guy, and you know, maybe did a few kind of cool things on the console as well. But it's more
Yeah.
about helping younger people out. And,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I mean, one of my biggest mottos, or at least attempts in life, I know I fail at it quite often, is just don't be an asshole. Like, try not to be an
yeah,
asshole.
yeah,
You know?
yeah. It's not hard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, sometimes it's hard. It depends on the situation. Some people make it hard,
yeah,
but don't be an asshole, usually works pretty well especially when you're collaborating with other people. Like, you
yeah,
know, don't try and make everything about you. Make it about the outcome.
yeah,
Like we're all focused on the outcome, not on what I can sign my name to and say this was Marcel's version of the outcome. I don't care. Let's just focus on the
yeah,
outcome, whoever's version it is. And
yeah,
so sometimes that's hard to do, but I don't know. Like I think it's really important that lighting companies, sound companies, companies doing touring of any kind, because we need more people obviously coming in. There's always
yeah.
shortages. People are still struggling to find crew. Some of the
It's
people
because
that they're
the rigs are
getting are,
getting so big. Yeah, yeah,
that's part of
yeah,
it. But I mean, plus
yeah,
everybody's on tour all the time now. Like it's
yeah,
the fact that there's venue shortages constantly, tells you that there's just a lot going on, obviously. But
yeah,
I think we need more blended crews, where they're like, and I know it's hard to do a show the size of the Stones. I think your dog wants in again. Do you need to let him in?
yeah.
Her in?
No, no,
Oh,
there's
oh, she's
there's a
barking at
dog
the UPS
outside or
guy.
something. Yeah, yeah,
But like I think it's hard when you're the Stones or whatever to just say, hey, we want some more green people to come out with us
yeah,
and blend with our more tenured people, our older guys. Um, but that creates, I guess, some quality issues or safety issues or whatever. So that's challenging. You probably want the
yeah,
most experience you can possibly get.
yeah. I mean, most of the time, a tour like that, you can, you know, you can have a couple pretty fresh people and just make sure
Yeah.
that, you know, you look after what they're done. I mean, I always say, like, you know, a rig should not go up until one of us checks all the bolts, checks, make sure there's no wrenches sitting on the truss, whatever, and you know that some, you know,
Yeah.
if there's a young kid, as long as somebody's looking after whatever they're doing, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of the things, you know, one of the great things about the Bob C's of the world was when you left that shop, you knew what you were doing because he was such a taskmaster.
Yeah.
And now, you
Yeah.
know, you can't be mean to kids in the shop. You can't,
Yeah. It's kind of true, isn't it?
yeah, you can't work them 100 hours a week because
Yeah.
whatever. So then they go out on tour, and all of a sudden they got these long hours, and you know, if you're not used to it, that's when you start making mistakes. But
Yeah. And now tours have
yeah,
HR departments,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know, so
yeah.
everybody
But
has somebody to talk to.
yeah, but you know, I
Yeah.
mean, obviously there's great young kids out there and
Of course. Yeah.
doing really good work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, especially in your role, like in, programmers
Yeah,
and guys and girls running the desk and stuff,
yeah,
just because they've grown up with iPhones in their hands, they've grown up with
yeah,
laptop computers, they've grown up with coding and all this kind of stuff. So,
yeah,
whereas with old guys like us, that stuff was all like, whoa, this thing has buttons that light up. Like it,
yeah,
technology came a lot slower to us. Uh,
yeah,
and so, I think that part's really interesting because they can move a little faster sometimes. None of it's foreign to them. It's maybe some of it's kind of antiquated actually when they look at it.
yeah.
Um, but have you ever thought or talked or looked into any of the AI stuff? Like, are you paying any attention? Because I know it hasn't impacted our industry yet, but I assume it
I know it's
eventually will.
coming.
Yeah.
I was with hanging out with Brian Hartley and Michael
Mm.
Keller, and Brian
There's a
was
group.
because he's yeah, okay, he's all over that stuff, and he was showing us.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, that's amazing, but I don't have when I'm like I said when I'm home. I got three kids, younger kids, and I don't have the bandwidth right now to look at all that. But you
Yeah.
know it's coming.
Yeah.
But going back to your point about these kids being so great on the
Yeah.
consoles right away, but then the problem is that there's this whole group that wants to go straight into that, which is you gotta know the other end of it too. You have to grow up setting them up. You have to know what it does, and
Yeah.
and too many of them
Yeah.
just want to go and sit back. I mean, that's one of the reasons like I said, I still love doing load-ins and load-outs. And you see these kids that I've never done not that it's bad. I think it's a great thing, but a time code show. I mean, you sit there and you focus, and then you watch the show run itself, and then you go to the bus. I mean, how
Yeah.
is that, furthering your career? Okay, I don't know.
Yeah, I had that conversation recently with Mark Brickman. I went to New York to see the David Gilmour thing that he had just done,
Mhm.
and I don't know if you saw it, but he's doing that whole thing where he's using
Yeah,
stylus on the screen. He calls it
yeah,
paint with light, and he just said, like if I was going to go out and tour with David Gilmour again, doing all the old Pink Floyd stuff and everything, he said I was going to run the desk. I wanted to
yeah,
control the lights. I wanted to busk the show. I didn't want to
yeah,
just sit back and watch it. And that's what he did, and he created a whole new sort of way of doing that, a whole new input method with this stylus
yeah.
thing on the screen. And it was really cool. You didn't see it, I assume.
I saw videos of it, and I talked
Yeah.
to Sparky. Sparky's a good
Yeah.
friend of mine, and we chatted a bit about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It was
clever.
honestly very clever, very unique, very
Yeah,
different. It just, like, to me, first of all, you didn't have any, massive, 1,000-watt LED spotlights blasting you in the
yeah,
eyes, but just the way that the color moved through the system, and just it was just unique. It just felt so different to anything else I had seen before that.
yeah.
So I really enjoyed it.
He's clever,
Yeah.
that Mark.
Who knew? Who knew? Who knew he was so clever? But
Yeah,
yeah, I love Mark. He's a very creative guy, very smart guy. Um, you know, he's got some quirks, as we all do,
yeah.
and I found a few of those, but I love the guy and I appreciate everything he does. Um, so, hey, what other things are you learning along the way right now, like as compared to 20, 30, 40 years ago doing this? What are some things that are different? Like, is it harder, is it easier, is it better, is it worse? Like, how would you compare, or is it just
I
all an
mean,
evolution?
I think it's an evolution, and you can either fight it or dive straight into it, or
Yeah.
I was thinking before we were doing this, I was kind of thinking about the evolution of all this. And there's like the Ollie Metcalf, who's a brilliant designer who
Right.
wants the latest and greatest every time, or not even the greatest. He just wants to try out whatever the new thing is. I'm
Yeah.
always a little gun shy about trying the new stuff, but yeah, I've been to LDI the last couple of years, and even though a lot of it, I'm like, well, it's all starting to look the same. You
Yeah.
know, all the lights can do this, all the lights can do that, but you look at some of them, and there's some innovative stuff out there, and you're like, well, that's pretty cool. I'd love
Yeah.
to give that a shot. And yeah, you need to. It's fun. You gotta
Yeah.
embrace it and have fun with it. But at the same
Yeah.
time, it's great to be able to go back and do a 3 truss rig of no color pars
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
play around for. Yeah, so
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think you have to
technology
grow.
obviously it plays a role,
Yeah,
but growing for a reason, not just more flash and
yeah,
trash, like growing for a reason, and improving the show, improving the whole result, not just like I can blast brighter lights in your face all night or
yeah,
whatever. Um, so yeah, that's where I kind of get stuck. Like,
yeah,
to me, it all kind of blends and starts where again, like I've been on the moving lights sales side of things. I'm not really right now. I still sell moving lights, but I own a used equipment platform. But, I've been in the moving light business forever. And like I said, you used to be able to tell every single one of them apart because they all had, nuances, different ways of moving, different ways of changing color. The colors themselves look different depending on the manufacturer. You could always tell, and you can't anymore. Like right now, you could have a Roby rig or an Ayrton rig or a Martin rig, and I wouldn't know the difference for the most part.
Yeah.
And so that sucks.
Yeah. But I think one of the most game-changing things we've seen in the last few years is the remote spotlight. I was
killer.
I was really gun shy about Follow Me. When it came out, I thought, and I'd use the PRG one, we'd use the robo spots, but I'm like, okay, I'm happy to use it for back spots, but front spots, it's all tied into the computer. Like if you have a house spot, unless you lose power to that spot, if your console goes down, you can still do a show. But, since in the last, I don't know how many years, I've had Follow Me on, most every show I've done, and knock on wood, it's never, and it's amazing. I mean, the stuff we did. So Willie brings Alan Branton in to do the key lighting on U2, and the stuff Alan wanted to do, you could never ever do that before with the older technology, and it's amazing. You want 10% from this side and you want 50% from that side, easy, and you want to control 20 lights on Bono at once.
It's all been really reliable for you. Like there's no quirks really or
reliable.
Anything.
Yeah, I mean, much more reliable than having, when you got 14 spot operators trying to get them, first of all, trying to get them harnessed up and up in the truss, and having to, your most stressful time before the show is before the show, and having to have spot meetings, and this guy's late because he didn't realize it's a stadium and there might be 50,000 other cars coming in, or 25,000 cars. So, I mean, that part was always stressful. And now, at first you stress, well, what if the console goes down? But and the possibilities. And now, Roby's come up with, I can never remember the names of the lights, but they're from Follow Spot.
Yeah.
They're the light, the I Forte, whatever it is. But I mean, it's amazing. It's so bright, and color temperatures are nice. Yeah, that whole stuff has really revolutionized.
So you're using the automated spot systems, Follow Me. You're not using like RoboSpot, the where they've got the fake follow spot like in the VOM or something.
We use, so John Mayer, we just use Follow Me. At U2 The Sphere, we used a combination. We used Follow Me for the front, and because we had towers that were moving, we used RoboSpot. Although now you can use Follow Me for that because they can take whatever data from the encoders and translate. But
interesting.
But so we just, and they're all great systems.
Yeah. They're all
just
it's amazing how much incredible technology has been dedicated to follow spots, to getting rid of follow spots. There's 3 or 4 great systems that I can think of that that work really well, but just entirely different concepts on how to deal with the problem, how to, different solutions for the same problem, which I love. Like that's, it's one of the things that so many people always say about this industry is that, give us the problem. We'll find a solution for it, regardless of what it is. Like COVID, I don't remember if it was Marty Hom or Jake or one of the major production managers out there I had a conversation with. He said, I just think that they should hand us the problem. We'll figure out how to get people safely in and out of venues and fill a stadium with people and try not to get them all sick. We'll figure that out. And he's probably right. It's obviously that was a horrible time, and thank God we're not going back there anytime soon. But
although there were some benefits to it,
there were.
Once we realized, we weren't going to lose our home, and to be able to be home for a month and a half and hang out
Yeah.
with the kids and everything. But
What do
yeah,
you
I
mean a
mean,
month,
we're
month and a half?
I
What do
mean
you
a
mean?
year and a half, a
Oh,
year
year
and
and
a
a half. Yeah.
half.
I was
Yeah,
like, what show did you
yeah.
do that was a month and a half in? Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, we are a solution based business. I talked to I'm pretty good friends with Chipmunk, and we've spent times talking about, and that was before the internet. How he used to source things, and
Yeah.
you needed to live in a city that had a great hardware store and a great electronics store, and they went and built it.
Yeah.
On
Yeah. It's true.
U2 360, Hedwig from Stageco was trying to figure out how to lift the center portion, and he talked to his crane drivers and his or crane operators, and they're like, well, you can't use 4 cranes. You can 3 cranes at the most, because if one of them goes, then you got a problem. So he's searching the internet and comes up with some kind of hydraulic something, I think, that bridge builders use, and
Yeah.
came up with that. I mean, yeah,
Wild. Yeah. No, there's
yeah,
incredibly innovative people, and also we're stubborn. We're a stubborn
yeah,
industry. We don't take no for an answer. We find a way, right?
yeah,
There's always a
yeah.
way. Yeah. So you mentioned something. You sent us a whole bunch of notes, and one of the things you mentioned was your motto for life, which
Oh,
is uh, not to half-ass anything. So
yeah.
you're basically just saying full on, no matter what you're doing,
Well,
or
put everything you can into it. There's, like I said, I mean, we're there to give the audience and the band a show. My job out front is not only to make sure the audience can see the band, have a little bit of stuff going on, interesting stuff hopefully going on, but also to make sure that, you know, that the lights are the last thing the band has to worry about. And it's
yeah,
because you always put 100% in. I mean, that's one of the reasons I think I still, I don't want to dwell on it, but still like to load in and load out, because I feel like it's my the lights are my responsibility. If there's a decision to be made, I'm going to be the one. I want to be the one to make it. So if I'm going to be there, you might as well get your hands dirty and help out. And
yeah.
yeah, just
Good for you. I
do
mean,
it.
I don't know
Yeah.
of a lot of people who still do that.
There's a few.
Yeah,
Michael Keller's still out there on the
yeah,
floor.
yeah, yeah. That's cool. I love that. So what about charities or anything that you like to be a part
I'm
of,
uh,
promote?
I don't, I'm not a part of, but I donate money every December. I like a lot of kids charities and
Yeah,
stuff like that. Yeah,
yeah.
Hospitals,
That's
Doctors
good.
Without Borders. My father died of a stroke, so American Heart Association, but
Yeah,
mainly kids charities.
yeah. Oh,
Annie's
that's
Hope is a great one out of St. Louis. Yeah,
yeah.
firm believer. I was brought up that you gotta give back.
Pay it
I
forward,
mean,
of course.
yeah,
Well, and inside the industry too. And I mean, I know
yeah,
that you talk a lot about mentoring younger people and sharing
yeah,
stories and sharing information with younger people and stuff. I think it's super important because
yeah,
I never want to disconnect, the past to the future in this industry. I really, it's one of the reasons that I keep doing this is because people are genuinely interested in hearing how it was done in the 60s and
yeah,
70s and 80s and stuff. And I get so many comments from people, on social media and stuff, or messages back to me saying, wow, I had no idea. This is incredible. Thank you so much for sharing. And it's not me
yeah,
sharing; it's you guys all sharing. So I
yeah.
appreciate that part of it, of course. So
Well,
what do you got going on this year?
well, Stone's canceled, so I got a
Uh
few
oh.
things. I can't really talk about them because they're
Ah,
not set in stone yet, and I don't want to jinx
yeah,
it.
yeah. Well,
But
and then you'll get the
there,
Stones
oh,
call again, and
we
it's
hope
back on again. Yeah,
we hope so. Every time
yeah,
Opie or Patrick calls, you get the call and you're like, "This is good news or bad news?"
yeah,
And this last one, Opie usually it's right away. Oh, it's fine. And there was a hesitation. I'm like, oh, okay, it's bad news. But
Yeah.
they're all relatively healthy still. So,
Good.
and the
Good.
beauty of it is the last show of the last tour was in Branson, Missouri, which was a great show. But we all said there's no way the Stones can end their 60 some odd touring
No.
career with the last
Yeah.
show being Branson, Missouri.
No, that ain't happening. That ain't
Yeah.
happening. They're not finishing in Branson, Missouri. I can't imagine what their last show will be whenever it happens.
Yeah.
But hopefully they go back out soon because I mean you're doing incredible things out there. And I have a
Yeah.
friend down here in South Florida who every single time the Stones are anywhere, within 1,000 miles of here, he's like, Marcel, come on, we're going. I'm like, dude, I am not going to see the Stones again. I've seen them like 6 times. I'm good. I was never a Stones fan growing up. I was a
All
Led
right.
Zeppelin fan. I just, the
All right.
Stones sort of skipped me somehow.
Yeah.
And I was a big Led Zeppelin guy and then got into heavier stuff, Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and all that stuff. So the Stones was just not a thing for me until later in life, which is when I started to go see them. And my ex-wife worked for their record company, and so saw them a few times with her. We had a classic picture of her and Mick Jagger where
Right.
they were standing like just with his arm around her or something, and I went to take the picture, and right before I took the picture, I think he pinched her butt, and then right after that she pinched his butt back, and he's looking at her like in shock, and I snapped the picture right then. So it's just a really, really cool picture. I wish my ex-wife
great.
wasn't in it because I'd hang it on the wall, but
Well, these days with Photoshop and all, you could put anybody
yeah,
in
it's
there,
true.
right?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Well, Ethan, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you taking the
And it
time out
was
of your
fun.
day to do
Thanks.
this. Yeah,
Thanks.
it's always
Nice chatting
great
with
to
you.
yeah, and you as well. And I look forward to seeing you back out with the Stones or whoever else you're out with this year. And I did get to say hi to you. You probably don't remember because there were 1,000 people there, but at the upstaging party this year, we did shake hands and quickly say hello. But yeah, cool. Well, thank you very
All
much,
right.
my friend. Enjoy
Thank
the rest
you.
of the week. All right, man.
All right. Thanks. You too.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.